Hey guys, tonight we're diving into a muddy, itchy corner of the Middle Ages around 1340, where you're living in a tiny English village, surrounded by straw smoke and fleas. Picture this, you're huddled in a creaky cottage scratching your leg like it's a full-time job while a flea the size of your pride hops onto your sleeve. These little monsters are everywhere, and spoiler, you're not winning this battle. Your modern self would scream for bug spray, but here you're armed with nothing but curses and a questionable herbal poultice. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and time. I love knowing where you're cozying up. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake to the crow of a rooster, its rasp cutting through the damp chill of dawn. Your bed, if you can call it that, is a lumpy sack of straw on a dirt floor, and you're tangled in a wool blanket that smells like wet sheep. The air's thick with wood smoke and something sour, maybe last night's stew. You're in a wattle and daub cottage. Its walls a mix of mud and sticks with a thatched roof that leaks when it rains, which is often. You scratch your arm, then your neck, and there's another bite. Fleas. They're the uninvited guests of this village, hitching rides on you, your dog, and probably the neighbor's pig. You groan rolling out of bed, your tunic already sticking to your skin. You stumble outside barefoot on cold earth and squint at the village, a cluster of cottages hunched around a muddy lane with fields stretching beyond. Smoke curls from chimneys and a woman across the way shouts at a chicken that's wandered too far. Your stomach rumbles, but breakfast is a crust of rye bread hard as a rock. You gnaw it, scratching your ankle, and notice a flea dart across your wrist. Not again, you think, flicking it away. It's back in seconds like it's got a personal vendetta. A mainstream fact for you, medieval villages like this were tight-knit, with most folks working the Lord's fields under the feudal system, trading labor for protection. But the quirky tidbit fleas weren't just pests, they were so common some people believed they were spawned by dirt itself, like tiny demons born from bad housekeeping. You'd laugh, but you're too busy itching. You head to the communal well, a stone ring in the village center where a bucket dangles from a rope. You haul up water, splashing your face, but it's murky, and you're pretty sure a flea just swam by. You're not drinking that. You glance at your neighbors, a blacksmith hammers in his shed, sparks flying while kids chase a hoop through the mud. Everyone's scratching arms, scalps, legs. It's the village pastime. You try a trick you heard, rubbing mint leaves on your skin. You grab some from a patch by the cottage, crushing them into a paste. It smells nice, but the fleas, they're throwing a party. Mint's a scam, you mutter, tossing the leaves. Humor break, imagine you pitching a flea-free cottage to the village elder. Clean straw, no bugs, you'd boast. He'd squint, scratch his beard, and say, "Fleas are God's will. Your startup dreams, squashed like a bug." Speaking of bugs, you try shaking out your blanket, hoping to evict your tiny roommates. Bad move. A cloud of fleas erupts and you're flailing, coughing, looking like you're auditioning for a bad dance. The blacksmith pauses, chuckling. "New here," he calls. You nod, red-faced, and he tosses you a rag. "Wipe down with vinegar," he says. You're skeptical but desperate. You head back inside where your sister Agnes is stirring a pot of pottage, peas, barley, and a mystery vegetable. She's scratching her elbow, and you're both bonding over your shared misery. "Fleas again?" she asks. You nod and she hands you a clay jar of vinegar. You dab it on, wincing at the stench. It helps maybe, but you're still a flea buffet. Here's the scholarly debate historians argue over how much medieval people understood about fleas and disease. Some say they linked fleas to illness vaguely. Others insist they were clueless, blaming bad air or divine wrath. You're just praying the vinegar works, science or not. You sit by the fire, the smoke stinging your eyes but keeping some fleas at bay. Agnes ladles pottage into a wooden bowl, and you eat, dodging the occasional grit in the broth. The quirky flea-spawning belief pops back. Villagers thought sweeping floors could birth more fleas, so some just gave up cleaning. Your cottage's dirt floor, practically a flea nursery. The mainstream feudal fact lingers too, your life's tied to the Lord's land and fleas are just part of the deal. You're starting to get why everyone's so grumpy. Another gag, picture you trying to train fleas like a circus act. You'd set up tiny hoops, whispering, "Jump." They'd ignore you, biting your hand instead. Your career as a flea whisperer over before it began. You finish your pottage, and Agnes suggests checking the village's market tomorrow. "Maybe they've got better herbs," she says. You're doubtful but curious, anything to escape these bites. You scratch your neck, noticing a new welt. The day's young, but you're already dreaming of a flea-free night. Fat chance. You step outside again, the village humming now. A cart rumbles by carrying hay, and you spot a dog scratching furiously by the well. Solidarity, pal, you think. The mint and vinegar are failing, but you're not giving up. That market Agnes mentioned. It's your next stop, Fleas or not. You grab a basket, hoping to trade some eggs for relief, and head down the lane, the itch of this village life trailing you like a shadow. You're trudging down the muddy lane from your village basket of eggs swinging in your hand, the itch of fleas still nagging at your skin. The sun's climbing, casting a pale light over fields of barley and rye, and the air smells of damp earth and distant manure. You're headed to the nearby market town, a bustling speck of chaos where merchants, farmers, and charlatans collide. Your sister Agnes swore you'd find something to fend off the fleas, some herb, some charm, anything better than that useless vinegar. But deep down you're braced for disappointment. Those fleas from the cottage, they're probably hitching a ride in your tunic, plotting their next assault. You scratch your elbow, muttering a curse, and keep walking. The town's a mile off and the path's a mess, ruts from carts, puddles from last night's rain. You dodge a particularly swampy patch, nearly losing a shoe. A cart rolls by, its driver whistling, and you catch a whiff of fresh bread from his load. Your stomach growls, but your eggs are for trading, not snacking. You pass a shepherd herding sheep, each one a fluffy flea hotel, and you give them a wide berth. No new tenants, thanks, you think. The town's walls come into view, low stone, more for show than defense, and you hear the market's hum, shouts, laughter, the clink of coins. It's alive and you're diving in. You step through the gate and the market square hits you like a wave. Stalls line the cobblestones piled with cabbages, wool, and pots that look older than the hills. Merchants bellow, hawking everything from ale to amulets, while kids weave through the crowd chasing a stray goose. The air's thick with smells, roasting meat, sour wine, and yes, the faint musk of unwashed bodies. You scratch your neck, feeling a fresh bite. A mainstream fact for you, medieval market towns were economic hubs where villagers traded goods and news, often under the watchful eye of a local lord who taxed every sale. But the quirky tidbit, some merchants sold flea traps, small boxes filled with honey to lure the pests. Spoiler, they worked about as well as your mint paste, which is to say, not at all. You weave through the crowd, clutching your eggs like they're gold. A woman with a basket of turnips bumps you, and you nearly drop everything. Watch it, she snaps, scratching her arm. Flea solidarity, you think, but you're on a mission. You spot a stall draped in herbs, rosemary, lavender, sage, and a wiry man behind it, his beard flecked with crumbs. Flea cure, you ask, hopeful. He grins, showing a gap where a tooth should be, and holds up a bundle of dried nettles. Rub these on and they'll flee, he says. Your skeptical nettles sting, but you trade 3 eggs for a handful, stuffing them in your basket. If this backfires, I'm haunting you. You think, moving on. Humor break, imagine you trying to pitch a flea-free market stall. No bites guaranteed, you'd shout, waving a nettle. The crowd would laugh, then pelt you with cabbages. Your entrepreneurial dreams sunk faster than a leaky barrel. Speaking of leaks, you sidestep a puddle of questionable origin and nearly crash into a juggler tossing apples. He winks, but you're distracted by a flea crawling up your sleeve. You flick it, and it lands horrifyingly on a nearby nun's habit. She doesn't notice, but you're already slinking away, praying she doesn't curse you to eternal itchiness. You pause at a baker's stall, the scent of warm bread pulling you in. The baker, a round man with flour-dusted hands, offers a loaf for 2 eggs. You're tempted, but you spot a flea on his counter hopping like it owns the place. Nope, you think, backing off. Here's the scholarly debate historians argue over how much fleas shaped medieval daily life. Some say they were a minor nuisance barely noted in records. Others insist they were a constant plague, driving hygiene practices like they drove you to this market. Your team, constant plague, given the welts on your legs. You try the nettles, rubbing one cautiously on your wrist. Big mistake. It stings like a wasp and you yelp, dropping an egg. It splats on the cobblestones, drawing a crow that's braver than you. The merchant cackles from his stall. Takes a day to work, he calls. A day you groan, wondering if you've been scammed again. The quirky flea trap tidbit pops back. Those honey boxes were sometimes worn like necklaces, making you a walking buffet. You'd rather burn your tunic than try that. The mainstream market fact lingers too. These towns were where rural life met commerce, but they were also flea superhighways, spreading bites faster than gossip. Another gag, picture you joining a market flea catching contest. You'd lunge at one with a cloth, miss spectacularly, and knock over a stack of pots. The crowd's laughter, louder than the town bell. You shake off the daydream and spot a charm seller, her stall draped in ribbons and bones. "Flea ward," she whispers, holding up a carved stone. You're desperate, so you trade your last egg, slipping the charm into your pocket. It's probably nonsense, but hope's all you've got. You turn to leave, but a kid bumps you and the nettles spill from your basket. You scramble to grab them, earning more stares. "Market hero," you mutter, sarcasm dripping. You weave back through the square, the charm heavy in your pocket. A minstrel strums a lute, singing about a knight who slew a dragon. You pause, caught by the tune, but a flea bites your ankle, snapping you back. The market's no sanctuary, it's a flea paradise, and you're their favorite guest. The debate about fleas' impact tugs again. Were they just background noise or a daily torment? You're itching too much to care. You head for the gate, the town's noise fading, ready to limp home. That cottage, fleas and all, is calling, but you're already dreaming of the village church. Maybe a prayer will do what nettles couldn't. You're trudging back to your village, the market's clamor fading behind you, as the late afternoon sun dips low, casting long shadows across the muddy path. Your basket's empty, no eggs, just a stinging handful of nettles and a dubious stone charm that's probably as useful as a soggy straw mattress. The fleas are relentless, biting your arms, your legs, even your scalp, like they've unionized against you. You're headed to the village church, a squat stone building where you're hoping a prayer or divine intervention will banish these pests. That vinegar from the cottage, it's a distant memory, and the market's nettle scam still burns your wrist. You scratch your neck, muttering, "If God hates fleas, why are they winning?" The village comes into view, its cottages huddled like gossiping neighbors. You pass the well where a girl hauls water, scratching her elbow. "Flea Club new member," you think, nodding. The church sits at the lane's end, its wooden door weathered but sturdy, a cross carved above it. You push inside and the air shifts, cool, musty, with a faint whiff of wax and incense. Candles flicker on a stone altar, casting shadows that dance across walls painted with faded saints. A handful of villagers kneel on the dirt floor, heads bowed, their whispers blending with the creak of pews. You're here for relief, but you're not sure how to ask God to smite a flea without sounding ridiculous. You find a spot near the back, kneeling on a straw mat that's surprise crawling with fleas. Of course, you groan, shifting to avoid a particularly bold one. A mainstream fact for you: medieval churches were the heart of village life, not just for worship, but for community gatherings where priests guided souls and soothed fears. But the quirky tidbit: some villagers believed fleas were a divine test sent to teach humility. You're not feeling humble, you're feeling homicidal toward anything with 6 legs. You clasp your hands, mimicking the others, and whisper a prayer, "Lord, please no more bites." A flea hops onto your knuckle, mocking you. Heaven's got jokes, you think. The priest, a gaunt man with a tonsure like a sad halo, shuffles to the altar. He's muttering in Latin something about sin and salvation, but you're distracted by a bite on your ankle. You try focusing, closing your eyes, but the straw mat's a flea circus. You shift again, and your charm, the one from the market, clunks onto the floor. Heads turn, and the priest pauses, eyeing you like you've interrupted his big moment. You scoop up the charm, mouthing sorry, and feel your face burn. Humor break: imagine you trying to explain the charm to the priest. "It's anti-flea tech," you'd say. He'd squint, mutter about pagan nonsense. And you'd be stuck scrubbing pews as penance. Your church cred buried deeper than the market's eggs. You try praying again, this time louder, hoping volume equals sincerity. "Deliver me from fleas," you murmur, but a villager nearby coughs and you're pretty sure it's a laugh. You glance at her, she's scratching her neck, so at least you're suffering together. Here's the scholarly debate historians argue over how much medieval people relied on religion versus folk remedies for pests like fleas. Some say churches were their first stop, with prayers and relics. Others claim herbs and charms like your useless stone were just as popular. You're trying the prayer route, but you're tempted to smuggle some incense home. It might smoke the fleas out. The priest starts a chant and you join in, stumbling over the Latin. The rhythm's soothing, almost enough to forget the itching. Almost. A flea bites your calf, and you flinch, knocking a candle. It wobbles but stays upright, thankfully, because setting the church on fire would really ruin your day. The quirky divine test tidbit pops back: some priests preached that enduring fleas built character like spiritual weightlifting. You'd rather lift actual weights than deal with these bites. The mainstream church fact lingers too. These buildings were sanctuaries, but also flea hotspots with straw and crowds making them pest motels. You're living proof scratching as you pray. Another gag picture you volunteering to bless the church against fleas. You'd wave a candle like a wizard chanting nonsense until the priest banishes you for heresy. Your exorcist dreams, extinguished faster than that wobbly candle. You refocus, noticing a woman slip a coin onto the altar, whispering for her sick child. Her worry hits you. Fleas are awful, but life here's fragile in bigger ways. You soften, adding a prayer for her, even if your Latin's a mess. The charm in your pocket feels heavier, a reminder of your market flop, but you're not giving up. Maybe faith and nettles together will crack this. The service ends and villagers shuffle out, still scratching. You linger, eyeing the altar's relics. A bone fragment in a glass box, said to be from a saint. You're tempted to ask for a flea miracle, but the priest's watching, so you just nod and head for the door. The cool air hits you, and for a moment the itching fades. The debate about religion versus remedies tugs again. Were prayers like yours heartfelt or just habit? You're not sure, but the church's calm lingers, even if the fleas don't care. You step into the lane, the village quiet now, and think of the Lord's castle nearby. Maybe they've got better flea defenses. Or maybe they're just as itchy. You're about to find out. You're trudging away from the village church, the priest's Latin chant still echoing faintly in your head, but the fleas are louder, biting your arms like they've got a personal grudge. The sun's nearly set, painting the sky a bruised purple, and the air's turned crisp, carrying the scent of wood smoke and damp hay. You're headed to the Lord's castle, a hulking stone pile just beyond the village where you've been roped into a night of guard duty. Why, your neighbor owed a favor, and now you're filling in armed with a rusty spear and a tunic that's basically a flea condominium. That stone charm from the market. It's still in your pocket, doing nothing but weighing you down. You scratch your scalp, muttering, if prayers didn't work, maybe castle walls will. The path to the castle winds through a field where cows chew cud and eye you like you're the weird one. You dodge a fresh pile of dung, your only win today, and spot the castle's silhouette, squat towers, a drawbridge, and walls that scream, stay out. Torches flicker at the gate, and you hear the clank of armor. You're not thrilled about this gig. Guarding sounds noble, but you're more likely to trip over your spear than fend off invaders. You reach the gate, and a grizzled guard with a scar across his cheek squints at you. You're late, he growls, scratching his neck. Flea Club Castle Chapter. You think, nodding. He waves you in, and you step into the courtyard where the air's thick with the smell of straw, sweat, and yep, more fleas. The castle's alive. Even at dusk, servants haul firewood, a cook yells about a burnt stew, and dogs bark at nothing. You're assigned to patrol the ramparts, a narrow walkway atop the walls. You climb a spiral stair, your spear clunking against stone, and emerge into the night. The view's stunning field stretching under a blanket of stars, Vesuvius, a dark hump in the distance, but a flea bites your ankle, ruining the moment. A mainstream fact for you: medieval castles were both fortresses and homes, housing lords, their families, and a small army of servants all under one roof. But the quirky tidbit: fleas loved castles as much as villages, hiding in straw mattresses, and even knight's armor. Imagine a warrior scratching mid-battle, less heroic than the ballads claim. You start your patrol, spear over your shoulder, trying to look official. The ramparts are cold, and your wool tunics, no match for the wind. You scratch your arm, then your back, and realize your armor, a padded leather vest, is a flea paradise. You're tempted to ditch it, but the headguard's watching from below, so you keep pacing. A torch sputters nearby, casting shadows that make you jump. Relax, you tell yourself, but a flea bites your wrist, and you nearly drop your spear. Humor break: picture you trying to train the castle dogs to hunt fleas. You'd wave a bone, shouting, "Fetch the pests." They'd chase their tails, and you'd be left scratching, looking like the court jester. Your dog whisperer dreams bitten to death. You pause by a crenel, peering at the village below, its cottages dark, except for a few glowing hearths. You think of Agnes, probably stirring pottage and cursing fleas like you are. A guard joins you, a lanky kid named Tom, who's scratching his beard. "Fleas worse up here," he says, like it's a fact of life. You nod, sharing a grimace. He offers a tip: sleep near the fire. Smoke keeps him off. You're skeptical. Smoke didn't help in the cottage, but you file it away. Here's the scholarly debate: historians argue over how much castles prioritized hygiene versus defense. Some say lords invested in baths and clean straw. Others claim fleas were ignored, with filth as common as stone. Your team filth, given the welts under your vest. You keep walking the ramparts, stretching endlessly. A flea crawls up your neck, and you slap it, earning a bruise for your trouble. The quirky flea and armor tidbit pops back some nights, stuffed herbs in their padding to deter pests, but it rarely worked. You'd try it, but your nettles from the market are long gone. Probably stinging some poor crow. The mainstream castle fact lingers too. These places were power centers, but also flea motels with straw and crowds making them pest playgrounds. You're living proof, itching as you patrol. Another gag, imagine you pitching a flea-proof castle to the Lord. New straw daily, you'd say, waving a broom. He'd laugh, then send you to muck the stables. Your interior design career, smothered in manure. You shake off the thought and spot a rat scurrying along the wall. It's probably carrying fleas, and you give it a wide berth. Tom's still nearby, humming a tune about a maiden and a dragon. You try humming along, but a flea bites your ear and you curse instead. The night's young, but you're already dreaming of dawn when you can ditch this spear and sleep. You reach a tower where a brazier burns its smoke curling into the sky. You linger, hoping Tom's fire trick works. The warmth's nice, but a flea hops onto your hand, unimpressed. You flick it into the flames, feeling briefly victorious. The debate about castle hygiene tugs again. Were lords proactive, or just enduring like you? You don't care much. You just want one bite-free hour. You glance at the stars, their light steady, and for a moment the itching fades. Guard duty's dull, but the castle's alive with stories, servants' gossip, knights' boasts, and your own flea saga. You grip your spear, ready to keep pacing, but whispers of a strange illness in nearby towns drift through your mind. You shrug it off clueless and march on the fleas, your only enemy for now. You're stumbling down from the castle ramparts, your guard duty finally over as dawn pales the sky, painting the fields in soft grays and golds. Your spear's back in the armory, your leather vest ditched, but the fleas, those relentless little vampires, are still with you, biting your neck, your arms, your everything. The castle's courtyard is quiet now, save for a servant sweeping straw and a dog scratching itself by the gate. You're exhausted, your tunic damp with dew, and all you want is your straw mattress, fleas or not. But rumors from last night's patrol, whispers of a strange sickness in distant towns, nag at you. You shake it off, scratching your scalp, and head back to the village. That stone charm from the market. It's still in your pocket, as useless as ever. And you're starting to think the fleas are immortal. The path home is familiar, winding past barley fields and a stream that gurgles like it's mocking your itch. You pass a farmer leading a mule, both of them scratching flea solidarity, you think too tired to smile. The village comes into view, its cottages huddled under thatched roofs, smoke curling from chimneys. You're not sure what's next. Maybe sleep. Maybe another futile anti-flea remedy. But you're done with castles and prayers. The air's crisp smelling of wet earth and baking bread, but a flea bites your ankle, and you curse loud enough to startle a crow. You're fleeing the fleas, but they're winning, and something darker looms, though you don't know it yet. You reach your cottage, pushing open the creaky door. Agnes is up stirring pottage by the fire, her face etched with worry. You're late, she says, scratching her elbow. You nod, collapsing onto a stool, and notice she's pale, her hands trembling. Heard about a sickness, she whispers. Travelers say it's bad, fever sores. You frown, thinking of the castle rumors. A mainstream fact for you, the Black Death, starting around 1346, would soon devastate Europe, killing millions spread by fleas on rats and humans. But the quirky tidbit, some medieval folks thought cats caused the plague, leading to mass feline purges, ironic, since cats hunted the rats carrying those deadly fleas. You're clueless about this future, but Agnes's fear is contagious, and you scratch your arm, wondering if the fleas are more than a nuisance. You grab a bowl of pottage, but your appetite's gone. The cottage feels smaller, the air heavier. You try the vinegar trick again, dabbing it on your bites, but it's like spitting on a forest fire. Agnes hands you a sprig of lavender, saying, "Sleep with this under your pillow." You're skeptical. Lavender's no better than the market's nettles, but you tuck it in your pocket with the charm. Humor break. Imagine you trying to sell a flea-free village on Medieval X. No bites, just vibes. You'd post. The replies, "Nice try, itch boy." Your influencer dreams swallowed by digital fleas. Speaking of flops, you shake out your blanket, hoping for a nap, but a flea hops onto your nose and you flail, knocking over a stool. Agnes sighs. "You're cursed," she mutters, half joking. You step outside, needing air. The village is waking, kids chase a pig, the blacksmith hammers, and everyone's scratching. You spot the church, its cross glinting, and remember your failed prayers. The castle's smoke trick didn't help either. Nothing does. Here's the scholarly debate. Historians argue over how much medieval people connected fleas to the plague before it hit. Some say they noticed rats and bites. Others insist they blamed bad air or God's wrath, until the death toll forced answers. You're not thinking that far, you just want one flea-free moment. The quirky cat tidbit pops back. Killing cats made the plague worse. A mistake you'd laugh at if you knew. The mainstream plague fact lingers too. The Black Death reshaped society, but right now it's just a rumor, a shadow you can't see. You wander to the well, splashing water on your face. A flea crawls up your sleeve and you flick it into the bucket, hoping it drowns. The village feels tense, fewer smiles, more whispers about sickness. You overhear a neighbor say a nearby town's lost half its people. Your stomach twists, but you push it down. Just talk, you tell yourself, scratching your leg. Another gag picture, you pitching a flea-proof tunic to the village tailor. Woven with magic, you'd claim. He'd snort, hand you a needle and say, sew it yourself. Your fashion empire itched out of existence. You shake off the thought and head back to the cottage where Agnes is packing a sack-bread, cheese, a knife. We might need to leave, she says, voice low. You freeze. Leave the village as home, fleas and all. But her eyes are serious and you nod, grabbing your blanket. The lavender sprig falls out and you tuck it back, a small comfort. The debate about plague awareness tugs again. Did people like you sense the danger or ignore it? You're sensing something, but it's vague, like a storm you can't see. You step outside the village, humming with unease. A cart rolls by, headed north, its driver pale and scratching. You and Agnes exchange a look. The fleas are bad, but what's coming might be worse. You sling the sack over your shoulder, ready to flee the itch of this life trailing you into the unknown. You're far from the village now, the cottages and their fleas fading into memory as you walk a quiet path, the stars above winking through a velvet sky. The air's cool, the world soft, and your steps slow, each one pulling you closer to calm. You're safe, tucked away from the chaos of markets, churches, and castles, the itch of those relentless pests. Just a story now. Picture a gentle stream nearby. Its murmur lulling you, washing away the day's worries. The sack on your shoulder feels lighter, the lavender scent lingering, and you breathe deep, letting the tension slip. The medieval world with its mud and rumors drifts like smoke, and you're here wrapped in the night's embrace where no flea can follow. The stars pulse the breeze, whispers, and you sink into peace. Your eyes heavy, your heart still. Sleep calls soft as a mother's hum, and you drift. End of script. Sweet dreams.